Good morning, guys. Well, we're going to find out what happens next. And before we even start, we're going to start with prayer. So everyone bow their heads. Father, thank you for this day. And it was so good. And I asked you to help me to remember everything that I tried to learn to teach this lesson, and how great you are, and how your hand is in every moment of every one of our days, and how you direct our path, and how you make things, our situations work out for us, and that you have full control of every situation, and you see everything, and you know everything. Let us have peace about that, and let us know that you love us, and let us have peace with that too. And I asked you to help me teach, and thank you for this day and these days ahead of us. Thank you so much for creating this world and everything in it. You are mighty to be praised. And thank you again. In Jesus' name, amen. Yes, he is in full control. Do you guys remember what we were talking about? Esther. And this story, and it's right from the Bible, and it is so true. I mean, it almost is, it sounds like a Hollywood or a movie that could be playing. I wish they would make it into a movie, because the plots each day is just like incredible. It just can't be, it doesn't even sound real, but it is real, and it is true, and it is history. Well, last week's verse, God is a very present help in trouble. Psalm 46:1. And who was in trouble? It was the Jews. They were in trouble because of the wicked Haman. Yes, wicked Haman. And just like I said, it can't be any. We have the king, who is innocent. We have the queen, the beautiful queen. And then we have Mordecai, the man who's trying to warn everybody about that wicked Haman. Ooh, he's wicked. He wants to kill all the Jews. Now there's the plot. How could that be any different? How could that? It can't play out any better. And now our verse for this week. Look at that. A horse. And who's on the horse? And no, it isn't Haman, it is Mordecai. And he that followeth after righteousness and mercy findeth honor. Proverbs 21:21. And righteous means, yes, doing things that are right. Choosing to do right things. Listening to what God says. And in Mordecai, he did that. He listened to what God said all the time. And he worshiped the one true God. And mercy, that means, you forgive, and you're kind, you're always forgiving, and it's just it's good. It's good. So, he that followeth after righteousness and mercy findeth honor. And honor, that means when someone gives you honor. You're looked upon as very favorable, very nice. And there we are. Now, I wonder how that came about. Mordecai on the horse, because the last time we left him, remember when we left him, he was covered with ashes and dirty clothes, and he was weeping because that Mordecai had set out to kill all the Jews. And he told Esther she was born for such a time as this. And she had everybody in the kingdom that were all Jews. They were fasting for 3 days, and her servants and her were fasting for 3 days for her to find out what she needs to do, because she knew that if she would go before the king and he did not hold out the golden scepter, she would die. Well, 1, 2, 3 days has gone by, and she gets ready. So she tries to make herself look really good, because she's the queen and she's going before the king. It's been 30 days since she's been seeing the king. So she puts on her pretty gowns and her makeup, and she does her hair and her perfume and puts on all of her pretty jewelry. And she goes in front of the house of where the king is sitting. And she's very nervous. And guess what happens? The king looks. Ah, it's my beautiful Esther, the queen. And the king holds out the golden scepter. Ah, she's not going to die. And what does she do? She touches the very end of it. And the king is like, Esther, what can I do for you? Why are you coming into my court? What do you want? And she's like, if it pleases you, my king, I prepared a beautiful meal for you. A meal, and I'd like you to come eat with me, you and Haman. Get Haman, come on, Esther wants us to eat. So they sit down and they have a banquet. And the king is and they're eating, and the king is wondering why, in his mind, well, Esther, why are we eating here? Well, on one thing too, Haman thinks, well, I'm at the dinner table with them. I am pretty nifty, pretty nifty guy. And the king says to Esther, Esther, what is it that you want? I mean, I'll give you the whole kingdom or half the kingdom. What do you want? What would be? And she's just like, I just want to have a meal, and a meal with you. And they eat, and of course they're done. And she said, and she also has one more request, and she says, I would like to have another meal, another beautiful meal with all kinds of good food and drink, and you and Haman I would like to do that. So, and he said, okay. So after the meal, Haman, Haman's like, wow, I'm a pretty nifty dude. I'm going to go tell my wife about this. And he goes to his house and he says to his wife, I got to eat. I am so important. I got to eat with the king and the queen. And I am just so important. He was telling all of his friends about how great he was because he was able to eat with the queen and the king. Esther's pretty smart, isn't she? She kept the enemy right nearby. Smart Esther. I believe God told her to do that. And then, of course, he's there telling his wife about how he ate with Esther and the king. And but Mordecai, he doesn't bow to me. I'm so tired of him not bowing to me. Well, his wife, Haman's wife says, well, since you're so important, Haman, just go have the gallows built. And just go the next day and have Mordecai hung. Yeah, just go do it. You're so important. You got all the kind of favor with the king. Yeah, it's a good idea, wife. I think we'll get them gallows built. Well, you would think. Poor Mordecai. But who is in full control here? God is. This is what's amazing. That night, the king could not sleep. He just tossed and turned and could not sleep. And he has one of his servants read from the book of records. Well, there's more. Mordecai saved you from two evil men that were trying to plot to kill you. Well, the king says, Mordecai, did we do anything great for Mordecai? Did we reward him at all? Did we reward him at all for saving my life? And the servant says, nope, didn't do nothing. then that time there's, who's out there? Who's in the court out there? Who's out there in the court? Well, it's Haman. Send Haman in. Send him in. Hey, Haman, what about, well, in the meantime, Haman's going there to say, hey, let's get this Mordecai killed. I'm sick of him. Well, he walks in. Well, the king, Ahasuerus, asks him before he even can say a word, says, what should I do for a man that I would like to honor? Oh, Mordecai's like, oh, in Mordecai's mind, he's thinking, he wants to honor me. Oh, the king loves me. He loves me so much. Wonder what... Oh, king, I think for you to honor the man, to honor a man, I think you need to give him your clothes, your crown, and your horse. And I think you need one of your servants, one of your pretty important princes to walk around the town and say, this is the man who the king honors. And the king says, well, Haman, that is a good idea. Do that for Mordecai, the Jew. Mordecai's like, oh, wow. Could you imagine his face? And remember the secret Esther had? Esther has not told yet the secret. And for some reason, Mordecai, Ahasuerus, the king, found out that he was a Jew. It says that in the Bible, and I quite don't understand that quite yet. I'm going to have to keep reading it over till I get some knowledge on that. But Mordecai was like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. So here they get Haman is so embarrassed that he doesn't know what to do because he is the one who has to walk around town with Mordecai on the horse. So there they are. And he has to say, this is the man who the king honors. He is so mad. He's so mad. And then when he's done taking Mordecai around town, he runs home to his wife. Can you believe it? What happened? I had to take Mordecai around on the king's horse with the king's crown, with the king's clothing. And his wife was like, oh, goodness, Haman, this is not good. If the king wants to give him praise, then all of a sudden, knock at Haman's door. It's time for the banquet, the second banquet. So what's going to happen? I can't tell you till next week. Oh. So I'm going to read you the story from the book, just in case I missed something. But isn't that an exciting story? I mean, you couldn't write a better play than that. I love it. All right, here we go. Make sure I got all the details right. Hear ye, on the 13th day of the 12th month, all Jews throughout the kingdom shall be put to death by the order of the Majesty King Ahasuerus. Remember, he tricked them and said that the Jews were going to be killed. Well, they had to be killed because of the lie that Haman told and said that they were not listening to the king's laws. Well, that was a big lie, and he's going to be found out. Even Esther would be killed, all because Haman hated Mordecai and the Jews. After Esther learned of the law, her cousin Mordecai asked her to go to King Ahasuerus to beg him to spare the lives of her people. But the king had not asked for Esther for 30 days. Anyone who went to the king without being asked was put to death, unless the king held out his golden scepter to the person. Queen Esther decided to go to the king, even though it meant she might die. For 3 days and 3 nights, Esther and all the Jews went without food and earnestly prayed to God. At the end of the 3rd day, Esther put on her most beautiful royal robes and her crown and went to the king. And it was so, when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. And Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Esther could have told the king that she was a Jew and her people were going to be killed by the new law. But she had another plan. Esther invited the king and Haman to a banquet. Of course, the king agreed to come and sent a message to Haman that he was invited too. Haman was very pleased with himself. How about that? I'm to dine with the king and the queen of Persia. Truly, I am the favorite. I shall have power and fame. Haman thought to himself. At the banquet, Esther did not tell the king what she wanted. Instead, she invited King Ahasuerus and Haman to another banquet. Now Haman, he was very excited. 2 banquets with the queen and the king. Haman hurried home to tell his wife, "You and I are going to be wealthiest, the most important people in the kingdom. The queen has invited me to another banquet. Now I can ask the king for anything and I will get my way. Well, hurry and build the gallows to hang Mordecai and put him to death," she said. And that's exactly what that the wicked Haman did. And that night, King Ahasuerus could not sleep. He tossed and turned on his bed. He called for his servant to read to him from the record book. And so the servant began to walk back and forth and read. The servant read about the time when Mordecai had saved the king's life by revealing the evil plot. King Ahasuerus asked, "Well, what was done for this brave and honorable man, Mordecai?" "Why, nothing, your majesty," responded the servant. "Well, tomorrow I shall reward that man." The king decided and went to sleep. When Haman came to the palace the next morning, he planned to ask the king for permission to hang Mordecai that very day. "Haman, just the man I wanted to see," began King Ahasuerus. "Tell me, what should I do for a man I wish to honor? Well, let the royal apparel be brought." "Oh, excellent." Okay, I'm skipping ahead here. And the king said, "Let the royal apparel be brought which the king used to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let this apparel and the horse be delivered to the hand of the one of the king's most honorable princes, that they may array the man with whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor." "Excellent," agreed the king. "Go and do all these things for Mordecai." Haman was shocked and angry, but he had to follow the king's orders. And so off Haman went to do the king's command. Mordecai was dressed in his royal robes and seated on the king's horse. Haman led the horse through the streets for everyone to see. Haman hurried back to his house after he took Mordecai back to the palace gates. He told his wife and friends what had just happened. They all agreed that this was not good. It wasn't a good thing to happen to Haman. It was embarrassing, and he was in danger of losing his place with the king. Just then the king's servant came to take him to Esther's second banquet. And we'll find out next week what happens.